Hi everyone, my name is Peter. Thanks for joining me at Our Worship Sound. I want to do a video, and maybe this will lead to some other videos as well, but just some tips on how to improve the sound of your chords. In this first video, the advice might be a little bit counterintuitive because I think as we start learning to play chords on piano, we want to get that big full sound from our chords, and so we add more and more notes to it. And I want to show you some processes that you can use to maybe go in the other direction, because sometimes less is more, and we can get more impact from just a few notes rather than trying to play as many notes as we can. So we're going to take a pretty simple progression. We're going to use C, then D minor 7, and then C/E, so a C chord with E in the bass, and then F, and that's it. So when I was younger, I might have thrown everything that I could into these chords and done something like, and just thrown extra notes in there for color and that kind of thing. But I think there's some other ways that we can go about it that might, like I said, kind of create more impact with fewer notes. So here's some processes that we can use, and this is not going to be like, this is set in stone, this is what you should use all the time, and do it this way. This is not about that. This is more about doing some things to maybe get you listening in a different way and try to hear some things that maybe you're not hearing before. And so here are the processes that we can go through to kind of simplify our chords and get them sounding nice with a few notes. So first of all, we're going to break it down into just two notes. We're going to use the root and the third. So instead of playing a full chord and then the bass note, we're just going to use one note in the left hand, one note in the right hand. And to break it down really simply with chords, chords are primarily based of three notes. So we have our root, a third, and a fifth. So the root is simply the kind of the name note of the chord. So if we're talking about a C major chord, the root is C, and then we add a note three notes above that, and then three notes above that, or a fifth above the root, and we have our root, third, and fifth making up the chord. Okay, so what we're doing right now with this first step is I'm going to play the root in the left hand and the third in my right hand. So looking at this progression for the C chord, we'll have C in the left hand and then the third, E, in the right hand. For the D minor chord, we'll go D in the left hand and then the third of the chord, F, in the right hand. And then the third chord gives a little bit of a wrinkle, and it's my fault because I chose this progression. But instead of doing, it's a C/E, so right away we have the third of the chord in the bass. So we'll leave that there, and we'll play the root of the chord in the right hand. Okay, and then to finish things off, we'll have an F chord with F in the bass and the third, A, in the right hand. So to put that together, we'll have okay. Now again, I'm not saying that this is where we're going to end up, but this is a process. And my theory is that the root and the third pretty much carry the identity of the chord, and our ears can figure out the rest. But especially within the context of the progression, if we hear the root and the third in a chord, we know what that chord is trying to do and where it fits. So again, okay, what this does for us is it gives us a sense for the melody that's being created by these chords. So we have this movement in the right hand with this da 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 da. Okay, so that gets us hearing the progression a little bit differently. The next step is we're going to add in that missing note, the fifth. Okay, but we're going to do it in a specific way. Okay, and I want to add this fifth note as far away from the other notes as we can. So for example, if we look at this C chord, we've got the root, we've got the third in the right hand, and now we need to add a G, which is the fifth of this C chord. So I can add it here, but then it's only a third away from the E. What I want to do instead is add it a sixth below. So now we have three notes that are as spaced out as we can make them, and we have this sound. Okay, now we hear each note distinctly, much more so than if we were playing just in a root position triad. Okay, so this gives greater clarity. and just an overall nice voicing. So the way that we arrange the notes in the chord is called the voicing. This would be an open voicing because it's more spread out. This is more of a closed voicing, okay? So we're adding the fifth, but as far away from the third and the root as we can. For the D minor, we'll keep the root and the third, and then the fifth is A, and we'll keep that down here. Now for the C/E, we had the E in the bass and the C. We still need to add the fifth, which is G. We can add it a fourth below the C, but instead I'm going to add it a fifth above. Makes it a little bit farther away. Okay, and then for the F, we have the third here, which gives us the option of adding the fifth of the chord, which is C. I can add it 2 notes up, or I can add it down here. Now once we get down into this range, it sounds fine now. It's maybe getting toward the muddier end of things on the keyboard. So what I'm going to do is actually move this an octave up. So we have the third and the fifth. So root, third, fifth, and it's still a nice open voicing there. So here's what we end up with now. Okay, so all 3 notes of each chord are represented, and listen to the melodic movement that's created in the right hand now. Okay, it just moves up the scale. Da, 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 da. So it's different than what we had before when it was just the root and the third. Okay, so at this point we start to hear these different options, and we can move in either direction. If I were playing this, I would probably go in a little bit, somewhere in between those two. And what I would start to do is maybe add some melodic embellishments to it. I would start to hear different things in between the chords so that I can add in some different melodic ideas. So it's kind of somewhere in between. Da, 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 da. Okay, so which is a different option. And in the final step, what I would do is I might add a color note or 2 to some of these chords. Here I'm going to play a little bit with the F at the end, okay? And I'll explain what I do after I play it. Okay, so what I did was I added the B to the chord. Now B has nowhere in an F major chord, but where it does belong is in the C major scale. Okay, we're playing in the key of C major, so we have this scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. B is the 7th note of the scale. It creates a tension that either resolves up to the C or down to the B. So if you listen to it in the F, it creates that very prevalent tension there that I resolve down to the A, because A is a part of the F chord. So listen to it again. Okay, so I think that's a nice touch. And then I might do one more thing, and that is add a G to the F chord. Okay, G is the 5th note of the scale, and it's a really stable note. It doesn't create tension, it's very stable. So it's gonna add just a little bit of color to that chord, okay? So overall, again, the progression that I might end up playing with is something like this. And I think that we can all agree that that sounds nicer than. Okay, that just feels like I'm just kind of throwing everything I have at the keyboard and not being really thoughtful about it. And that's really what I'm trying to get you to do. Just hear things a little bit differently and be really thoughtful and intentional about the notes that you choose to play. Now, these last 2 steps where I started talking about adding melodies and adding different color notes to the chords, that kind of falls within like the way I approach playing keyboard this way. And it's covered pretty extensively in my full-length course, Fluent Piano. So if you kind of move your cursor up to the upper right hand corner, you see a little I. You can click on that and there will be a link to Fluent Piano up there. There's also one more thing that's a free resource that you can take advantage of, and it's my free ebook that puts together a lot of these YouTube videos and puts them all within a framework that helps you to understand what I'm trying to teach in these videos. So I hope that was helpful for you. Again, hopefully I can put together some more tips for you on how to make your chords sound better. Thanks for joining me at Our Worship Sound, and we'll see you soon.